Well, hello members, this is another update on the cradle-to-grave videos that we keep doing. Of course, these are just a portion of what we have in the portfolio, but the ones that we happen to choose and that we continue to follow as they evolve, because as the trades develop, right, different things happen and you have to read what's happening and try to make decisions based on what's happening to position yourself for what is to come next. And it doesn't always end up being what you think, right? You create thesis and then you see if it plays out that way or not. So if we're looking at the gold, which is a trade we still have on, if I take and look back, you know, we've been over this a bunch of times, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you got this swing point high that was the range, and then it developed a range up underneath it, right? And that range up underneath was about like that. If you expand it, right, then you end up with the range something like this, just above it, and we almost got to it. And then we fade back off of it. We're coming in, we're doing a retest regen bullish off of this swing point high, and we're coming in within 6 bars. So that means we'll probably try to make it to the bottom of that area. And so gold still looks fine. As it comes into the bottom of the area, it's going to be overlap here, and that's where you probably want to try and buy it again if it behaves. So gold still looks fine, still doing its thing. The one thing I would say with gold that's a little bit of a disappointment is that you ended up with a retrace off of a multiple swing point high breakout, right? And that's typically not what happens. And so, you know, if you're asking yourself, okay, if it's not typical, what does that mean? Well, that means it's not quite as strong as you would like to see it. And so this push up, right, even though it got the consolidation for a period of time, once it popped out up here again, it comes back in to test immediately, and that says on this time frame it could come all the way down to here. So we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about adding to this position. If it behaves, you know, maybe you do add up here and maybe it just takes off again. But we just have to monitor it and realize that on this time frame it's a bit different story, right? We can come in deeper. So that's gold, still looks all right. Now if we move over to the gold shares, because here we actually ended up exiting today, and the reason for it was the way it came back. Now I had intended to buy this on this retrace, but I ended up not doing it because of the way it traded. And what I want to show you here and the reason for it, we came back with some pretty good volume into this bar, right, which is kind of the congestion area. The volume there about the same. So you had slightly less volume, but you came into it pretty hard. What that usually means is you're going to come back and try it again, right? So this test is probably not done. And so I would expect that to come back one more time. Now, if you look on the other side of it, where can it bounce to? It looks like about right there. So we may get the bounce up into this area before we get another failure. Now, if it plays out that way, there will be a small, you know, and it actually turns and comes back, will be a small ABCD structure to the downside that will bring it in deeper, actually to about 22 if I drew it right. Swing point high is here, so it's not that far away. So we could see the metals themselves, the miners, come in all the way to, you know, 21, 20, 21.80, $22 on the miner shares ETF from a high of about 26, 27. You know, that high was 26. So that's $4. $4 off 26 is a pretty good percentage, right? Talking about 12, 15%. So if that's true, you don't want to be holding the bag on the way down, especially if you rode this thing on the way up, which we did, averaging into it and getting a pretty good position. Now, the reason that I'm more and more skeptical this can continue to go is at this point, you don't even have a B point anywhere along the white line. You don't have any bar, adjacent bar, that has a lower high and a lower low. There's not one throughout this whole process. So the only times you get ABCD structures, and we can try to find one like here's one here. In this case, it's the opposite. You make a low, and then you get a higher high and a higher low, and eventually you do that, a lower high and lower low, and eventually you do that on this bar. So whatever the bar was prior to that, it had the highest point becomes the B point, And so you get an ABCD structure to the downside. Well, here we're looking for an ABC to the top side. We don't have one. This percentage gain is more than a double already. You started out at 1240, you're already at 26. That's more than a double. And so when you take those two things into account, folks, this is stretched. Now I know that it got a consolidation here, and that's nice, that's good. It was right at the swing point high, about where we'd expect it. Then you break out, right? Then you actually break out again, and just like on gold, this was a multiple swing point breakout, multiple time frames, yet you came back in. Again, not as strong as you think. I believe, on the daily we were looking at 22. Here you can come all the way back into the swing point high, and if you were to do that, that would be a push back to 21. And so 21 from 26, $5, not something I want to stick around for. That's 20-25%. So when I view it that way, take the money, wait for the next setup, let it reset, and then do it again. Finally, moving to the last stock that's in our group here is VRX, Valiant. We got the confirmation on these two bars that more than likely this is going to project higher before it's over. Now, there's so much negativity associated with this guy, though, that it takes a while, and that's fine. Big pop-up, volume expansion as you go back up. The last time you had this volume expansion was here on this push-up. Didn't get over it. Well, it actually did get over it. So it tested over this high. And so let me draw that in for you. So this push-up, right, was actually a test of this swing point high and a test of this swing point high. And it got over both of them, but fell back. Now, if you compare the volumes on all these bars, and let me grab the tool here, the high here that was pushing 6,477. Here you had 34, and over here you had 6,6. So you didn't have quite as much as this prior bar, so you pull back a little bit. Now you're touching into this bar. Top of this one's 32.72. Bottom here today was 33.17. I suspect it's going to try to test into this area, and then it's going to try to break it out one more time. And so the breakout, if it happens, is going to be across this level. It's going to be on two swing points, which gives it a little bit more juice. That could push it on up, and then we'd have to actually look at some intraday charts to find the next spot. But if I remember right, it was around 44. And so we're looking for another push. We're going to look at this hard tomorrow and see if we can actually buy some more of it on any kind of a retrace there that lets us. So the target still eventually is all the way back up here, 53.40, and finally if I bring over the monthly, you can actually see the 53 area was this whole congestion area back from here, and if you look on the charts, that was the gap down. So it came all the way back. When it gapped down, it came all the way back in to this area, right? And that was where the congestion was from before. And if I look at that price point, it's 59 there, and this swing point high was 57, the bottom was 51, and I believe that gap was at 55 if we pull back to the daily. Well, I don't have the daily here, but anyway, I believe it was on the, I do have the daily, but I messed it up. So anyway, I do believe that's where it's going to try to eventually trade to, back up to this 55, 53, 54 area probably. So we'll just keep working it. It's going to be a trade that we can work for some time now. And on the weekly, actually, while we're here, we've got one more day. We're doing 247. So we're going to be right at the same volume. So both on the daily and the weekly, the test of this bar is going to be on as good a volume, which is good. That's it for tonight. As far as the general market, it's what I've been telling you. You know, we need a reset in the markets. You know, I've got here, I've got the Qs up. The Qs, if I pull this back just a little bit, right, they've been building this ledge here. They're not willing to fail yet, but they keep trying. And I'm not sure if they're going to fall off the cliff and get a decent punch to the downside, but if they do, it's going to set up some better entries. And so we're going to stay kind of light, waiting to see how that plays out. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thanks. Bye.